Welcome to episode number 12 of Uncovering Unexplained Mysteries for Wednesday, September 7th, 2016. I had just had my birthday 5 days prior, and I talk about that in the beginning here. Well, I'm a year older, just had my birthday a few days ago. Thank you.
I'm the same age as you are, so yeah.
Yeah, we're quickly advancing in our age towards middle age, so I better get something done like big before I'm 30. That's like my big thing, is like I want to get something, some kind of success, some kind of tangible success before I'm 30.
No, am I 28? I think I am.
Oh my God, Mike. You have to think about it.
I'm just joking, really.
You're so busy watching movies that you don't even know your own age. You've lost everything that's important in life, Mike.
No. I know I am.
So yeah, we were going to do the podcast last night, but Mike lost his debit card, but he found it, thankfully, and...
Yeah, it did not remain an unsolved mystery for very long.
Yeah, so now for safekeeping, he's going to give us all the number to his debit card, so we'll all have it in case he loses it again.
Absolutely not. No. I love you guys, but not that much.
Well, fuck. All right, well, before we go any further, I do want to point out that we do have a Facebook page, a fan page. It is starting to get some activity, so that's cool. We like hearing from everybody. It's facebook.com/uncovering unsolved mysteries. You can go over there and check out that page. We post stuff on there a lot, like when we're going to be recording the episodes. We post little tidbits here and there. I think Mike's better at doing that. He'll post tidbits of things that you might find interesting, and people comment on there, and they've been really nice so far.
I just started this new thing where I give people who follow our page there, I give them little hints on what we might be talking about for the next episode. So it's a good idea to like the page, because, you know, we're dropping hints out there for you.
Yeah, if you're a fanatic, if you can't get enough of the podcast, I don't think that there's people out there that are fanatics.
No, there's some people like that on my YouTube channel. I mean, yeah, there's some people that are really, really into the podcast.
That's great.
So.
Yep, just goes to show you how much business acumen that I have, because when Mike first contacted me about doing the podcast, I was like, that sounds like a stupid idea. I was like, no one's going to listen to that. And goes to show you how much I know about what's going to be popular on the internet and what's not. Probably why my channel barely has 300 subscribers, which I'm about to hit the 300 milestone mark.
Good.
Yeah, uh-huh. Hey, better watch out, Mike. I'm coming up right behind you. I laugh because it's so not true.
Yeah, I'm almost to 10,000, and that'll be huge for me.
That's awesome.
That would just be... I never would have ever expected in a million years that I'd get to that mark. Yeah, I've been on here for 7 years, but, you know, it's slowly but surely. And, you know, whatever little bit of success I get is fine with me, because it's something I do for fun. And, you know, and if there are people, if there's just a small handful of people that like what I do, that's more than enough for me.
That's how I feel, too, about myself. And I guess we'll go ahead and get the YouTube stuff out of the way, too, at the beginning here. Mike's YouTube channel is youtube.com/OCP Communications. And mine, you'll just have to look up in the link below or in the podcast or whatever, because I am not big enough to have my own special link at the end of my URL. So you're just going to have to search for mine. It'll be
I think the only way that I did it was I was when I was connected to Google Plus, so I don't know.
Yeah, you might have gotten grandfathered in. I mean, you have enough subscribers to where you can have your own link now anyway. So
I didn't know that was a thing on YouTube. Where you have to have amount of subscribers before you can get a thing.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because, you know, it's like someone out there could just make like a dead account and like have like, you know, some real popular common name that someone who actually has intentions of building.
Well, they kind of do that anyway, but, you know, they don't last very long. So
well, that's good that they got some process of elimination there. But yeah, like when YouTube first started, you could have your own channel name, whatever. We're boring people with this bullshit. The first thing that we're going to be talking about is a case that Mike picked. It's Tammy-Lynn Leppert, and at first I was like, huh, you know, I don't know about this case. But then when I rewatched it today, I was like, yeah, this actually is a really great segment.
Yeah, I thought it was. I was just replying to, speaking of YouTube, I was just replying to a comment somebody was asking me about our show and saying, "Are you ever going to talk about cases that aren't on the DVD sets,
Oh, wow.
like Keith Reinhard, Hugh Harlan, Lisa Bishop, and the Freedom?" Which is kind of ironic because I actually did circle that one for a potential
Yeah,
segment.
I remember
So
that.
maybe, maybe the Freedom someday. Dennis DePue, and isn't that the one that's inspired by Jeepers Creepers, like Jeepers Creepers, inspired by that one?
I'm not sure.
If that, I don't know if that's the one I'm thinking of, where it's like the guy was in the van, and then this couple drove by, and they saw the bloody sheet.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know now. I know which one you're talking about.
If that's it, then if that's not on the set, then yeah,
No, it's not.
That might be one we'll talk about next week. So look forward to that. But anyway, Tammy-Lynn Leppert was one that I remember because I saw it at a young age, and it all like just came right back to me while I was watching the segment. I was like, yeah, I remember this, and it's still unsolved. No body has been found. It's one of those really just mysterious cases. How this 18-year-old model / actress just completely disappeared from the face of the earth about 33 years ago.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but it's the sad truth that society cares more when an attractive person goes missing. And she was this model and actress and all this stuff, so there was probably a lot more interest at the time with her than there would be for other people, and it's kind of shitty that society works that way, but I mean, that's how the news is. If it's some beautiful young woman that goes missing, the whole community's up in arms about it, but if it's just some middle-aged dude, it's like, well, he'll turn up, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is what it is.
But anyway, Tammy-Lynn had been modeling like for pretty much her whole life. This segment picks up when she was 16, when everything first starts. In 1982, the Miss America Sunshine and Beauty pageant in Orlando, Florida, it picks up with her winning that. Now, she had already competed in 300 beauty contests, and she had won the crown 200 times. Which is
pretty impressive.
That's crazy. That's fucking nuts. And any of you guys who's listening to this podcast, yes, she is very attractive. So it's,
she was an uncommonly beautiful child.
Yeah, then that's the words that they used in the show. She was uncommonly beautiful child. She was beautiful. She was really attractive, but, I'm more interested in the content of her character, Mike. Looks are only go skin deep.
I am too, but hey, I'm not gonna lie and say looks don't matter at all.
Right.
They do in some aspects. But really, I look for the character and personality. When I'm looking for a relationship, I want somebody who I can hang out with and whatever, and it's not just for attraction.
And I reckon that the girl that you date, you'd have to be able to talk movies with them.
Yes, that would be big deal. Yeah. Yes.
Especially if you have the same
the
movie
girl that
taste.
you date, you have to talk unsolved mysteries, right?
It helps. Music is a big thing for me. Like anybody that I'm with, like if they're into music or they play music, like that's really big. If they were, I don't know, if they were into making YouTube videos, that would be pretty cool. And just any kind of, I guess, common interests I have. Those are my two big ones.
You gotta have a common interest.
Yeah.
It's not called a sex ship. It's called a relationship.
Ooh, very nice. Very poignant words by Michael. I forgot you hate when people call you that. So Tammy-Lynn's mother and father divorced when she was only 7. Her mom was a modeling agent, and her mom enjoyed it. In my notes here, I have possibly a stage mom, a momager. I don't know. We don't know. It doesn't say in the segment, but typically these moms are kind of living vicariously through their kids, and
like Honey Boo Boo's parents.
Yes, good lord, what a nightmare that was. But it's like sweet justice whenever you find out that, like, you know, the husband or whatever, something nefarious is going on in the family and they cancel their show. It's like, good. They shouldn't reward that kind of stupidity and that dumbing down of our American culture more than it already is dumbed down by the shit that's on TV.
I agree.
Look at me on my soapbox this week. Jesus, God. Wing Flanagan, one of the clients of the mother, was also living at the house with the family, which I thought was weird. His name is...
Yeah, I thought it was her brother or or adopted brother or something.
Yeah,
but,
and like he was around the same age as the girl, so it's like it appeared to be the brother. He might have been a year or two younger, but yeah, he was one of the clients of the mom. And again, the episode does not go
into... He's kind of a nerdy kid, so I'm like, what client for what?
I mean, yeah, I could see how he had kind of symmetrical features, so I guess I could see how maybe he would be model material, because that's kind of what they look for in models, is like super symmetrical facial features and whatnot. That's why nobody's ever knocked on my door. But anyway, it's a different story. So he was living with the family, and in July of 1982, Tammy was cast in the teen exploitation film Spring Break. I thought Spring Break was a movie that came out in like 2015. Apparently, it came out. It was
called Spring Breakers. Was earlier before 2015.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
Spring Break, though, yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it before. It's a teen comedy. It's not an exploitation film. It's a teen comedy.
That's what they said in the show. They called it a teen exploitation film.
I mean, that's an exploitation film. It's stuff like They Call Her One Eye, or those blaxploitation movies, or exploitation movies, or I wouldn't call that an exploitation film, but that's just me personally. But yeah, I guess you could say it is, because it's like a cheesecake movie, because we got all the hot chicks and tits and ass and whatever, and there's not much plot. It's just
sounds like an exploitation film to me. However, Tammy went unchaperoned, so she goes and does this movie, and then she went unchaperoned to a weekend party, and this is where the whole story turns, because everything's sounding like she's your typical, like, super privileged, white chick, apparently. Up until she goes to this party, and she came back a different person, is what they say in the segment. Wing, her, I don't want to say brother, but this kid who was living with her also, he would always ask her, like, what's on your mind, because she looked, vacant in her face, He'd be like, what's on your mind? And she'd always evade the question. She'd always change the subject. And soon... Speaking
of Wing, I remember this part, where it's like, he talks about how it's like a status symbol to have, Tammy, kiss him on the cheek. Like, at first he was like, ew, I can't get this off, it won't come off. Or lipstick or whatever, but then he learned to wear it proudly, because it was Tammy.
Right. And if you saw her, then you might wear it proudly too. Maybe not now, but back then. Soon Tammy's behavior started to take on paranoid overtones. The phone would ring, and she'd tell Wing to answer it, and she'd say, hey, tell him I'm not home, tell him I'm not here. And in the reenactment, like, her mom, like, walked up while this phone was ringing or whatever, and she was telling Wing not to answer it, or to tell him that she's not there, whoever was on the other side of the phone. And all Tammy said was, I saw something awful, and she refused to talk about it.
The reenactment was really well done. That's another thing that stood out to me with this particular segment. I thought the performance by the actress who played Tammy was actually really good.
Yeah, it was.
And I don't know if she went on to do anything else, but she definitely had talent. That's for sure.
Yeah, so then she goes, Mom, what would you say if I told you that someone was trying to kill me? And then her mom was like, what are you talking about? And then, like, she wouldn't say anything more about it. And she would just never talk about it. She just said kind of these, like, really, like, cryptic ass things, and then she just wouldn't elaborate, which would have to be just ultimately annoying as hell as a parent.
Like, it would be infuriating.
Yeah. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, elaborate. Like, what do you mean, Someone's trying to kill you. Like, kids don't just say shit like that.
Yeah, and that's why they would think it's just a delusion.
Right. So, speaking of delusions, Tammy began a steady retreat into isolation, and the family had a hard time telling which of these kind of threats that she was experiencing were real and which were paranoid delusions. And I mean, I hate to bring this up again, but I mean, the common two themes in Unsolved Mysteries when it comes to anything that's not paranormal is amnesia and schizophrenia. I mean,
Hmm.
these come up every single time. It's either some form of amnesia or some form of schizophrenia that's the underlying theme of a lot of
Yeah.
these missing persons cases. Um,
Well, I mean, she was definitely panicked. She was definitely freaked out. She was afraid for her life. You could say that maybe this fear led to more delusions, but like the one where she's looking out, tells her Wing to come look at the window. It's like, what? See the neighbors? They got a new van. It's got mirrored windows. They can see us, but we can't see them.
right.
And of
Which,
course, you'd be like, what? What does that even mean? Like, why is that a big deal? Like,
well, depending on what happened at that party, that weekend party, I mean, that's really
yeah,
the biggest factor in all of this.
I think she definitely did see something that she wasn't supposed to.
Or maybe she took some kind of hallucinogenic drug at this party and she never
Yeah,
really came down.
that's a possibility as well. I
It's
didn't think
it,
of that. I
it's
didn't think about that one.
Yeah, it's I'm guessing some kind of a rap party, for the movie, and what is like the common theme in anything movie related or Hollywood related? It's always drugs and alcohol and giving it to young kids, and I mean that is no mystery there. I mean, Corey Feldman can tell you all about his childhood growing up and the all the fucked up stuff that was going on, in Hollywood with all these big time producers and how they could get you any kind of
Yeah,
drug you wanted and, all this other kind of stuff. So, I mean, it could have been some kind of really gnarly drug experience that she had at this party that gave her these paranoid, and that can happen, I mean, taking LSD once, taking or doing mushrooms one time,
changes your brain chemistry.
yeah, I mean, you can have a really bad. I knew this girl who took a whole bag of mushrooms, and she had she had like a 72-hour trip, and
Holy shit,
it was like hell basically,
that sounds like hell.
and she now suffers from PTSD as a result of her drug trip that she had because she took too many mushrooms or whatever. So I mean,
Yeah,
these are all possibilities of things that could have also happened.
don't take drugs, kids.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
Don't do
I'm not
drugs.
gonna tell you what to do, but you should probably not fuck around with it. If your life is good enough right now and things are good enough right now, and you think, well, I should just try it, you probably shouldn't. If you're pretty happy in life, then just kind of stick with that and don't open up Pandora's box because once you open it, you can't close it, and that's the thing about doing drugs. Once you have had that drug, then you now know what it is to go without it because you've introduced it into your system. That's why parents always tell their kids, just don't even start. Don't even start, because it might be awesome, but now you know what it's like and you might want more of it. There are very few
Yeah.
people I know who can do drugs responsibly. So, after all this kind of paranoid episodes were happening, Tammy was offered a small role in the Al Pacino movie Scarface, which is kind of like, whoa, some kind of, Hollywood credibility coming in here.
Exactly.
All went well until the fourth day of filming. Casting director called Walter Leibowitz, who Tammy was staying with at the time, and said Tammy had a breakdown and they had to take her to her trailer. Apparently, there was a scene in Scarface where someone was getting shot. Really? In Scarface? There was a scene where someone was getting shot? And blood spurted everywhere. And apparently, Tammy freaked the fuck out and she had to return to her trailer. And she was like, they're showing her in the segment just freaking out in this trailer, just like having a meltdown. And the actress, like you said, did a really good job. And she was going on and on about how she was going to die and she was hysterical. And in that frenzy said something about money laundering and made
Yeah.
light of some kind of money laundering, which kind of alludes to, if she has any kind of credibility about someone coming after her, the money laundering thing would be the only thing that, that would allude to that.
Exactly.
Um, so Leibowitz spoke to Tammy's mother and said, you know, you need to take her to a doctor and a psychologist to see if the problem was in her head or if there was some kind of factual evidence that someone was after her. Tammy did end up talking to the sheriff eventually, but she never mentioned her fear about her life being in danger, which, again...
that is very curious. That's a very, like, really? Like...
It's a Cindy James syndrome.
Yeah. But at the same time, if she was so terrified that someone's going to kill her, maybe, and she's like, oh, tell him I'm not here, maybe it was one of those things where it's like, if you tell anyone, I'm going to kill kill you and your family type deal. So maybe that's a part of it, but then again, you hear that a lot when it comes to these type of stories. It's like, well, I couldn't say anything because, you know, he said he was going to kill me or he was going to kill my family.
Which, if you... a lot of times, because, you know, this is a trope. You know, we see this all the time in movies. We see this all the time on TV shows. The guy, the murderer who tells the victim, if you go to the police, your whole family dies. And we as the viewers always go, hell, that's the first thing I'd do is go to the cops. But if you really look into like stalking laws and harassment laws in the United States, at least, they're on the side of the person doing the stalking and doing the harassment 100%. These laws are not on the side of the victim.
Exactly. You can say something, but the cops will be like, well, until we see anything, until something happens, we can't do anything.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that kind of goes into your whole First Amendment rights saying, you know, freedom of speech, freedom of, you know, whatever.
So that's kind of messed up, though. It's like, we can't do anything until, well, now she's dead. Well, whoops. Well, I guess we can't, you know.
There was one time this girl I was working with in music or whatever, her ex-boyfriend was harassing me and semi-stalking me, and I went to file a restraining order against him, and the cops showed up, and literally all the stuff you had to go through to file a restraining order, I just said fuck it. I said fuck it, and I'll just live my life with a baseball bat next to me, I guess, because I mean, you have to like set up a court date. You both have to go to court. You and the person you want to put.
You got to jump through hoops.
Yeah, you got to go through all this legal bullshit to get this person to stop bothering you, and it's so much easier. It's so much easier and less hassle to just say, you know, just go. Well, I'll just take my chances, and so I mean.
Yeah, you also have to deal with that too, the legal bullshit and all these different hoops when you're just trying to help somebody. Like if, you know, a family member has a mental breakdown, like you have to go through all these different hoops or whatever just to get them help, because they have to, oh, we can't do anything until he does something, or he harms himself, or he harms, you know, someone else. And it's just one of those things. It's just you kind of have to end up lying to be like, hey, he's not letting me go, so time to take him in type deal. It's just to get them the help that they need. And that's just infuriating to me. Like they think that the mental illness patient is the person who's going through a mental breakdown is going to be cognizant enough to sign off on, you know, some papers or whatever to be admitted into a hospital. I mean, give me a fuck break.
Yeah, well, you know, my whole point is that whenever you see these kind of things on TV and stuff where these people don't go to the police, it's like they probably know in their head that even if I attempt to go to the police and they just tell me, oh, we can't do anything, oh, I just got my whole family killed just then. Because the person knows that I went because they're probably watching me somehow.
Exactly.
And so the cops don't end up doing anything, and now my family's killed. So it's like, well, I'm just rather not go, and maybe if I do what the person wants, they'll leave me alone. So, I mean, you know, it's something that's
understandable.
Yeah, it's something I didn't think was understandable when I was younger, but now that I've personally been through this shit and almost filed a restraining order myself against somebody, now I kind of get it, you know? It's just sad but true. So Tammy's paranoia started to run rampant, and it even started to seep into her family life. She became convinced that somebody was trying to poison her, and she'd have Wing, the little kid living with her, taste the food before she'd eat it. According to her mom, she was not the Tammy that we knew. She did not recognize this Tammy in personality, and she even took on a different look. She always had a wild, scared look in her eyes. On July 1st, 1983, Tammy-Lynn finally snapped. Wing was on the couch reading. I wish this guy had a different name, because whenever I say wing, it just sounds like I'm referring to a plain wing.
Or a chicken wing.
Yeah. Wing was on the couch reading, and they have her just standing up there in the living room looking all on edge and all, and then she starts asking Wing, she's like, what are you looking at? In like a very cliched, like sister and brother type way. And then Wing was,
what are you looking at?
Yeah, what are you looking at? And then, Wing was like, not you. And then Tammy went outside, and like, I like how they portrayed this in the segment. They show her walking out, and then she sees some neighbors randomly playing across the street, and then she sees some lady walking her dog, and then
they
like
have the camera all tilted.
Yeah.
So they did a great job creating this sort of panic, this look of this weird sort of off kilter world that Tammy it feels that she's a part of. It captured how it probably feels like when you're having a panic attack. And I think that's what she had.
It does, because when you do have a panic attack, everything that seems normal does take on a kind of a different feel, and everything does seem different than what it should be. Because coming from someone who's had
sounds
hundreds of
louder than they normally are, and
yeah, me who's had like hundreds of panic attacks, I can tell you all about them. So she goes outside and she sees these fairly innocuous things, and then she starts freaking the fuck out, and then she goes to run back in, and the door was either locked or she perceived it to be locked. I'm not sure. But I guess there happened to be a bat outside, and she smashed the window. They had this kind of front, parlor window that was like really
very
big.
Memorable sequence, of events in the segment. Whoever the director was did a great job directing this particular part of this segment. Also, the actors once again did a great job. She was very believable.
Yes.
See, that's great acting, is when you can't tell that it's an actor playing a role. It looks like it's happening right in front of you for real.
Yeah, so she starts smashing this window in, and like Wing like opens the door, and she like pushes him, and she's like pushing him she's about to like fight him or something. She's like screaming at him like, why did you lock me out? Why did you lock me out? And he's like, I didn't lock you out. What are you talking about? And then her mom had to like intervene and like just push her against the wall and be like, I love you, calm down, I love you. And the mom said, I was able to handle that situation, but I knew that there would be other situations after that I might not be able to handle. So Linda checked Tammy into the Brevard County Mental Health Center. They found no evidence of drug or alcohol abuse at the time, because drugs don't necessarily stay in your system for however long she was suffering for, without the damage might have already been done without the drugs being in her system, is my point. They kept her for 72 hours of observation, and on the way home, Tammy asked her mom, you got to promise me if anything happens to me, you got to get even with the person who does anything to me. And the mom asked, what do you think is going to happen to you? And she said, Tammy said, I know you don't want to hear this, but he's still going to try to kill me. Tammy went out with her friend, I believe his name is Rick, the very next day, and she goes, Rick, I love you. I might be going away for a while. And he's just like, okay. The next day seemed very normal. They show everyone inside the house just kind of sitting around watching TV. And, they were just showing that she was okay. And then the mom was in the living room on the phone, just kind of ignoring her. Car pulls up, honks its horn outside, and Tammy goes, bye, Mom. And the mom's not really paying attention to Tammy that much, and she goes, I love you. And the mom's still on the phone. And then Tammy gets in the car and drives off. And then right at that moment, I guess the mom realizes that, oh, shit, I have a daughter who exists. And she goes out only to see Tammy as she drives away. And she said, at that moment, I knew I was never going to see Tammy again. And she just had a gut feeling. Police talked to the driver of the car because they were able to get a hold of him, and apparently the driver and Tammy got into an argument, and the driver dropped Tammy off at 3 p.m. at the Reliance Bank. That was 5 miles.
I love the reenactment there, because the actor, he's not that great, but it's the whole thing where he's just like, would you just shut up?
Yeah, the dialogue was like really just generic argument dialogue. She's like, what do you want from me? And he's like, just shut up, okay? That's what I want, for you to shut up. But he drops her off 5 miles from her house, barefoot, no purse, and at this point she disappears without a trace. Her friends felt strongly that Tammy was having problems at home and that she wanted to leave. But her mom said that she was getting ready to leave for California, which was as far away from Cocoa Beach as you could get. So that theory doesn't exactly hold up, which Cocoa Beach
No,
is...
it doesn't. She was gonna leave for 3 months to stay in California.
Yeah,
So
and when the mom said that, like, that's true, because, like, I live in Jacksonville. I'm like an hour or two away from Cocoa Beach, and yeah, you can't pick a more further point in the United States than where I live now compared to California. I Googled it, did Google Maps one time. It would take me 23 hours for me to drive.
Would Washington be farther than California? Possibly.
Okay, Mr. Semantics. Maybe Washington would be farther. Jeez.
I'm just throwing that out there. No, but really, California would be really far away, though.
Yeah. So, as Robert Stack goes, what could a 17-year-old have seen? According to officials, dozens of money laundering cases were going on in Florida at the time, which could just be a
Yeah.
So there was money laundering going on. I mean, there's any kind of shady shit under the sun going on in Florida. Never mind all those puns just then. But yeah, Florida, yeah. I mean, the pill mills here with the bogus doctors giving out prescriptions for Oxycontin and all that shit, money laundering, drug smuggling, you name it. Florida most likely has it going on. So, I mean, that could just be a coincidence. But she did say something about specifically. Again, my diagnosis of this is, because I know a little bit about schizophrenia because my friend has it. Schizophrenia kicks in around the later teenage years. Is kind of the prime time for schizophrenia to kick in. The later teens, early 20s, that time. I think that she wanted to be a movie star. She was in a few movies. She, was in these beauty contests. She had all kinds of accolades for her physical appearance, so she probably felt a lot of pressure all the time to, measure up. And so she probably went to this party and got into some shit. Maybe not the shit she thought she got into as far as people trying to kill her, but maybe she took some drugs. Maybe, some guy or some people befriended her and said, oh yeah, just do this. Everyone's doing it, blah, blah, blah. And, because, I mean, nothing ever happened that was, like, credible as far as, like, outside threats. It's like the Cindy James thing. Like, it's like, I mean, hell, even with the Cindy James thing, there was more things in that segment that actually happened than this girl. The segment never talks about any, beatings or random bricks flying through the window, notes being left anywhere. There was no evidence that anything was going on. It was all coming from her end of everything. So I feel like a bad schizophrenia set on by some kind of drug experience or just schizophrenia in general, I think that that's a viable theory as to what could have caused this.
That could definitely be a viable theory, but there could also be the fact that maybe she actually did see something that she wasn't supposed to. And maybe there actually was somebody who had threatened her and things like that. So the thing is, it's unsolved. So it's one of those like unknown sort of things. So we really have just a sort of, our idea of what happened.
What could she, involving money laundering and people wanting to kill her knowing too much? Because
But it might not necessarily be that, though. Because there's this extra stuff that I looked up on Wikipedia that the segment did not cover. Ooh. Where some presume that Leppert may have been a murder victim of serial killer Christopher Wilder, who killed many young women until his death in 1984. Leppert's family sued Wilder before he was killed by police, although they eventually decided to halt the process, as some had their doubts if he was involved in her disappearance. Leppert's agent also stated that she did not believe Wilder killed Tammy. But the whole thing is, around the same time, he abducted and raped at least 12 women and killed at least 8 of them during a spree from Florida and through Texas, Oklahoma, Nevada, California, and New York in 1984 before he committed suicide and during a struggle with police in New Hampshire. So several people believe that they had met on the set for Scarface in Fort Lauderdale, and then he made fruitless trips to her home to ask Curtis to allow him to see his daughter. However, it is generally believed that her disappearance during his murder spree could just be a coincidence, which it could be, but that's something worth mentioning. Another person of interest in this case is John Crutchley, a convicted kidnapper and rapist. He is suspected of killing as many as 30 women. He committed suicide in prison in 2002. Leppert's mother theorized that her daughter could have been murdered due to her knowledge of drug trafficking that was occurring locally. There we go, the drug trafficking thing. She reported that Leppert exhibited signs of paranoia, as she was cautious when consuming food and would not drink from open containers.
And that's the part that gets me. It's like, why, if all that if that was really what it was, that someone was out to get her, why would she think that her family would be trying to poison her?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, why would they be in on it too?
That's a paranoia thing. But sometimes when you see something that's traumatic, it causes the paranoia. So several age progressions have been created to show what she may have later looked like if she was alive. Profiles detailing the case were created by the Doe Network, National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, in hopes to generate leads from potential tips. Her DNA profile has since been processed once this form of forensic technology became possible, although her dental records and fingerprints have not been accessed by local police. It is believed that her dental information had been acquired at some point, yet poor record keeping resulted in the data being lost. And they also checked Jane Doe's, unidentified bodies that were found. And there's about 13 of them, and none of them matched up with her either. See, that's the thing. It's one of those, like, why have they not found her body yet? But then again, there's other murder victims or just people who disappeared and then just off the face of the earth that haven't been found. Their bodies haven't been found yet either.
Yeah.
The theory that you have also holds weight too, because there is a possibility that she maybe had a bad drug trip. It changed her brain chemistry, and then she started to have symptoms of schizophrenia, and then she was dropped off and then wandered off and then is just crazy.
Right, because my friend who had schizophrenia, when she was suffering from it before she got medication, she would get these crazy ideas like, oh, I'm going to ride my bike from Jacksonville to Miami, like her bicycle, like on the side of the highway. And to her, that seemed like a perfectly logical idea at the time. She's like, that just, I'm just going to go and do that. And like, and she would run away from her family and stuff, like, who was trying to, like, they were trying to get her to, like, bring her back to the house or take her to the hospital or something because she was acting crazy. But she thought, in her mind, she thought her family was, like, bad people who were trying to get her. So she was running like hell away from her. So, I mean, I guess because I've heard, my friend has told me so much about her experiences. When I hear like such bizarre, abnormal behavior like this,
that's the perfect word to describe it. Yeah, it was just a very bizarre case.
Yeah, I just, to me, schizophrenia just fits the bill so much, and how it can just literally kind of set in.
And when the longer you're in this sort of schizophrenic state, it ties in with a mental breakdown. The longer that you're in that state, the lower the chances are that you're going to get out of it.
Right.
If you don't get treatment. So that's a possibility that she just absolutely just went complete total schizophrenic. But you would think that they would have, you would think there would be some kind of record, though. I think. So, I mean, there is a possibility. Maybe she just lost it and walked off somewhere and, off a cliff or into a lake somewhere, possibly. But you think they'd find something. But,
well, another thing, too, when she just walked away, as she did, you got an attractive, young, fit girl.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Walking down the street who might be mentally unwell. You're still going to have some guy who's going to try to pick her up,
Exactly.
And she probably went along with them and maybe didn't know what was going on. And he was just like, hey, whatever, baby. Now you're with me. You can talk about people trying to kill you all you want, but Daddy's
or
got you now, I don't know.
and then or Daddy's got you now, and yeah, all this talk about the people are gonna kill you. Yeah, well, uh, you definitely found the right place.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's what sucks, man, about being a woman is you got so much shit so much extra shit you have to worry about just
I
walking.
mean, it ties into this other case I saw where they found the bodies though. That's the thing. They found the bodies of these Swedish uh, women who were residents, from Sweden, and they were hitchhiking and they disappeared and they found their bodies. So they just didn't find who killed them, but they found the body. See, there's no body here. So that's the thing that's it's very puzzling.
Almost makes me think about Breaking Bad, that show Breaking Bad, how they used to get rid of the bodies. They'd put them in that plastic tub and pour
Yeah,
what was it, that,
lie.
yeah, that acidic
Yeah,
shit that would just literally just burn, just dissolve their bones and everything, and they'd just be this red goop.
yeah.
It almost makes me think of maybe something like that could have possibly.
Or it could have been one of the serial killers. I think that's definitely a possibility too. It seemed like there was two serial killers that were in the area at the time, and if they saw her, I mean that's just prime. It's a prime, prime kill, really. I mean for those type of individuals, and especially Christopher Wilder because he was killing women that looked very similar to her.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's just one
I
last.
don't think there's a chance that she's alive.
No.
It's been 33 years. Although there was a case where this woman went missing in 1976 and was found 30 something years later, but that's an outlier. It's a very rare thing for that kind of incident or kind of moment to happen. That's not something that's going to happen that often.
Just as a fun fact, I did the math, and she would have been 51 years old now in 2016, which is crazy because like she is like middle age at this point. In this show, she's this young, beautiful model, and now she, if she's still alive, she'd be very, very middle age, approaching old age. So that's what's crazy about this show sometimes is you get a sense of just how long ago this show was around. They're
Exactly.
covering this
And
stuff.
other people have ideas that maybe she ran away, but it's like, yeah, I would think they would have found some sort of reference. She could have changed her name or whatever, I guess. But eventually, they usually find those type of people that run away and then change their name or whatever. Eventually, they find those individuals. Because I'm pretty sure you take a driver's license photo, they'd be able to know,
Yeah, it's one of those.
Put it through a database.
Those unsolved mystery segments that you watch where they don't have an update, those are always hard because it's like, oh, they still didn't.
I just thought this one was worth talking about because, for one, I remember it because I saw it at a young age. And, you have the whole connection, which she was somewhat famous. She was a beauty queen. She was also an actress in film. So there's that kind of connection that makes it pretty memorable. The shot where she's in her bedroom with the Spring Break poster in the background.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Nice.
But yeah, I don't know. I think the theories that Josh had and some of the ones that we have here, I mean, they're definitely credible, plausible, but it's unsolved.
I don't know, Mike. You seem a little too comfortable over there with your unsolved theories. Things are just wrapping up a little too conveniently, like you might know something.
I don't know anything.
Uh-huh. We'll look into that. Moving on. This is a segment that we've gotten requests for many times. It's something that obviously I've wanted to talk about. I want to talk about everything. I want to talk about all these segments in one 18-hour run, but obviously we can't do that because we have other things we do in our lives besides this podcast, unfortunately for you guys. But this would be the case of the murdered investigative journalist Danny Casolaro. This is a great case. it's just brimming with juiciness about government secrecy. If you're anybody who finds that stuff fascinating, much like I do, this case is for you. So, gosh, where to begin on this one? August 10th, 1991, 12:30 p.m. Housekeeper at the Sheraton Hotel opened room 517 for routine cleaning. Nothing could have prepared her for what she found inside, though. Lying in a tub of bloody water was a guest registered to the room. Clearly, he was dead. The body of a 44-year-old investigative journalist from Fairfax, Virginia, named Danny Casolaro was found. Within minutes, Martinsburg police were called to the scene, in which they found a brief suicide note that read, "To my loved ones, please forgive me, most especially my son, and be understanding. God will let me in." That's a bullshit suicide note if I've ever heard one.
Yeah.
I'm no forensic.
It sounds very fishy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, suicide notes are usually very personal. I mean,
yeah, but it just seemed kind of.
It doesn't tie up any loose ends. It doesn't answer any questions. It's just.
No, it seems like it's overly thought out.
It's contrived.
Contrived. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So in the bathtub, police recovered a single razor blade. Incredibly, Casolaro's wrists were slashed 18 times. Ugh, for the squeamish, just cover your ears. With 8 cuts on the left arm and 4 cuts on the right. One cut was deep enough to sever a tendon. Ugh.
I mean, it's specifically, look at that. I mean, his wrists have been slashed 12 times. 8 cuts on his left wrist, 4 on his right. One cut was so deep it severed a tendon. Would somebody, if they're committing suicide, would they really go like that extreme?
That's overkill.
That's overkill. Absolutely. 100% overkill.
They found his wallet in his room with cash and credit cards intact, and there appeared to be no sign of struggle. So what do police do? They call it a suicide, and they investigate it as such, or so we think. Casolaro's body was delivered to a funeral home. However, 2 days passed before the family was even notified of his death. Anthony Casolaro, his brother, called the police about his brother and asked what happened. Anthony said that they said, "We found your brother and he committed suicide. The maid found him Saturday." And then he asked, "Why did it take 2 days for us to be notified?" And, the brother started asking questions about, like, well, do you know who my brother is? Do you know anything about him? What about his papers? And the police just didn't have an answer for any of that. The papers that Danny Casolaro had in his hotel room that weren't found, they contained hundreds of notes and documents that came from years of investigation. Jack Anderson, a journalist that they interviewed for this show, he was suspicious of the suicide from the day he heard about it, the investigation and everything, and he was commenting on that. They have a bunch of journalists on this show that they interviewed. Danny must have been pretty popular, in the journalist community.
It sounds like it. I mean, he was really going deep.
Yeah.
He covered something that was really, really messed up, if you ask me. And dangerous for him and anyone else that was involved with it. It's some shady shit.
And that kind of ties into like the whole suicide thing, because Danny's fear of blood tests and needles and simple medical examinations was well known to the family. And they found it incomprehensible that he committed suicide by slashing his wrist a dozen times.
Well, also look at it too. All of his documents just disappeared. Like, if he killed himself, why would he do? Wouldn't the documents just be there? Would it still just be there?
And it also doesn't make sense because Danny just got done enthusiastically telling friends and family that he was close to breaking the story that had consumed him the past year, which is really the whole meat of this story, which I'm about to get into. He had started an inquiry into a computer software theft, but then it mushroomed into a broad investigation into government corruptions that Danny believed implicated U.S. Department Justice officials. People believe Danny Casolaro was silenced because he knew too much, and, well, that becomes the duh part of the story. The whole thing started when Danny was interviewing Bill and Nancy Hamilton, the owners of a computer company called Inslaw. the Hamiltons had developed a powerful program called Promise, and it was said to revolutionize data management for law enforcement. So a lot of law enforcement and government officials started utilizing this program. In 1980, the Justice Department purchased the software to handle their many cases. Initially, the program earned high praise and big returns for Inslaw, as you would imagine from any government contract. Then the climate of justice changed. At the beginning of the second year of the 3-year contract, the Justice Department began to withhold payments from Inslaw and drove Inslaw into Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is just the government at its finest, just making its own rules, you know, doing whatever they want, fucking over the little guy, like just typical big government behavior. The Hamiltons then learned... And it gets better. The Hamiltons then learned that Canada had acquired their software. The country of Canada had acquired their software. The Hamiltons told Casolaro that they were mystified at the illegal sales of their software. Then the Hamiltons talked to someone named Michael Riconosciuto, and he claimed to have worked for the CIA on numerous top-secret projects. Mike Riconosciuto agreed to talk to Unsolved Mysteries, and according to him... there were parties that were involved in distributing this pirated software, and these agencies were clandestine agencies that were involved in Nicaragua, Central America, and were involved in operations in the Middle East. And he says, yes, I have direct knowledge of the funds of the direct sales of this product to finance those operations. So then August of 1989, the Judiciary Committee opened a formal inquest, and they actually show a clip of this inquest, and this is not a reenactment. They show a clip of this Judiciary Committee. High-level Department of Justice officials that forced Inslaw out of business and stole its software were being, questioned and indicted and all that. Riconosciuto submitted a sworn affidavit of his knowledge of the involvement of these agencies. Weeks later, however, he was arrested on drug charges. At this point of this segment, he is currently being held in federal custody in Chicago, Illinois. This tainted his credibility, to say the least.
Yeah, do you really think those drug charges were legit?
Right.
I mean, that's my thing.
Right.
I think it was totally planted, and,
So then the deal gets even sweeter when we hear from Elliot Richardson. Now, if you don't know who Elliot Richardson is, good Lord. If you don't know who Elliot, I'm just I have such a boner for mysteries right now. If you don't know who Elliot Richardson is, he was the Attorney General for Richard Nixon, and this guy's such a good shit that he resigned before participating in the Watergate scandal. He saw what was going on with the Watergate scandal, and he just said, fuck you guys, I'm out. He drops the mic,
So he's a good shit.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
He's a good shit. He is. He really is a good shit. And he became legal counsel for the Hamiltons, who were the heads of this Inslaw company who was being pounded by the government. After months of investigation, Danny had uncovered an unsavory network of U.S. government officials, organized crime members, and intelligence agents he called the Octopus.
I love that.
Yeah.
That sounds like something straight out of James Bond.
Right. I mean, it's this
Spectre? Spectre is, the clandestine operation, led by Blofeld and all these other underground criminal operations working together. And it's called Spectre, and their logo is an octopus.
Oh,
so
wow, okay.
That's why it totally reminded me of that.
Yeah, well, I feel like a lot of, truth is stranger than fiction, and I feel like a lot of this James Bond stuff comes from, these kind of real life situations that are real, that do happen, and that's what makes them so tantalizing to talk about, because it's interesting. Casolaro believed that the octopus was at the heart of the Iran-Contra scandal, BCCI, BNL, and now even the largely discredited October Surprise, which sounds like a delicious birthday cake. So basically, in short, just about every major scandal of the 1980s, the octopus was behind. The deeper Casolaro went into the octopus, the more he found himself on intimate terms with shady characters. Danny Casolaro, according to this one guy who put it really awesome, another journalist friend, Danny Casolaro stepped into a world that he did not belong in. The people in this world lie just as a matter of course. They lie, they cheat, they're involved in numerous murders, drugs, and Danny thought he could navigate this labyrinth by himself. and that was a mistake. A week before Danny died, he told his brother that he was receiving numerous death threats, and these were actual death threats, not high LSD-fueled schizophrenic death threats. People were starting to call in the middle of the night that he had never heard of that were just telling him, "You are going to die," which I think is kind of funny because it's just like, could you be more subtle about it, sir?
It's so blunt. It's so blunt.
What are you trying to tell me, sir?
You are going to die. That hangs up the phone. You're like, oh.
You need directions? You have a wrong number? I just don't...
Actually, I think that's the worst possible call to get.
Yeah.
It's just so direct. And and the tone of voice is just like really, really serious. And then you're like, you get that phone call, you are going to die. That hangs it up immediately. And then you're like, holy shit.
Well, knowing that you're investigating...
What the hell am I in right now? Can I get out of this?
You know, with the knowledge that you're going to be a big government whistleblower, with the knowledge that you've been working with these sketchy individuals, getting a phone call like that would absolutely have a lot more gravity to it than just some, prank call or,
exactly. Yeah.
So, it's showing a scene where Danny's with his brother Anthony and, he's telling about all this stuff and Anthony's like, do you know who these people are? And he's like, no. He's like, I don't. He goes, I'll tell you this, though. When I go to Martinsburg, if anything happens to me, don't believe it's an accident. And so right there, you kind of have the foreboding of what ends up happening to him. And he's basically, pulling a Tupac and being like, it's not an accident. And, he leaves all these clues before he actually dies. With briefcases full of documents, Danny arrived in Martinsburg to meet with some informants, which would conclude his investigation. So he was almost done investigating all this. He had been tracking the finances of the octopus and believed one of his new confidants would deliver new evidence. This guy was giving him hard copy printouts of certain specific targets that Danny was after, having to do with the CIA's finances. Day before Danny died, he met with a source named Will Turner, who was an employee of a major defense contractor. According to Turner, he handed over paperwork documenting corruption that Danny believed was tied to the octopus. Within 24 hours, Danny would be found dead, and Turner's documents would turn up missing, along with the rest of the papers. So then they kind of switch to like what actually happened to Danny's body in this segment, and they talk about how Anthony was calling and saying, his brother Anthony was like, hey, I want an official autopsy done, this is bullshit, blah blah, and they tell him that well, Danny's already been embalmed, and Anthony's like, excuse me? He's
I'd be like, what the fuck, really?
He's like, is that what's supposed to happen? Is that the normal process? And the guy on the phone goes, well, no, but we'll just have to look into that. So then they finally get the autopsy done, and during the autopsy, there's a report that there was a bruise on the arm and the head of Danny Casolaro, and these bruises were never accounted for in the original police report. Additionally, the tips of 3 fingernails were missing from one hand, and that was not disclosed. Danny's hotel room was cleaned the very next day by a professional cleaning crew and inadvertently discarded important evidence. The previous day, minutes after Danny's body had been found, bloody towels were in the bathroom where someone had tried to mop up the floor and the walls. It's never been addressed who did this by the authorities.
Yeah, I like this quote by journalist John Connolly, and he questioned how the scene was handled by authorities. He's like, the police reports of the investigation are certainly not professional. Fingerprints get lost, get messed up. They drain the tub without a strainer. Sloppy work. Police have a rule in this country. People have a rule. When they screw up, they cover up. Sad but true. Do I think they covered up here? Yes, I do.
Yeah, that I remember that line specifically as well. Just how he's talking about it, it's like there's no strainer in the tub when they drain the tub. Sloppy work, I just love how he's just just your hardened.
And then the whole thing, when they screw up, they cover up.
Yeah. Which we've seen many instances of that. You don't got to be a fucking scientist to realize that happens. Well, I guess you don't have to. Even scientists, I don't know, that analogy didn't really work for that example. That's okay. I tried it. It didn't stick. That's fine.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist.
You don't have to be a rocket appliance to know that, that's a Trailer Park Boys reference there. I'm not going to take credit for that one. So Elliot Richardson, Nixon's former attorney general, he was talking about this. They were, interviewing him, and he's saying that there was enough evidence that he was murdered, and there should have been a much more proper investigation than what there has been. Obviously, Richard is just, very, just a veteran of Washington and how to speak, very diplomatically.
He's a no bullshit type guy.
Yeah, so he was, he wasn't super passionate about everything, but he was speaking in a very matter-of-fact way. And this guy isn't some Tom, Dick, or Harry off the street. This guy's got some clout. So, if he's saying that he believed that there was a murder and there should have been a more proper investigation.
Yeah, that's what he says. He says, all that I do know makes me believe that this is more likely that he was murdered than that he committed suicide. So he believes it's more likely that he was murdered, so...
So this is
I do too.
Yeah, yeah, it's clear to me that that's what happened. This is another very tasty detail. August 16th, 1991, at Danny's funeral, as the ceremony was coming to a close, a highly decorated military official showed up in a limo to Danny's funeral with a plainly clothed guy next to him. He was just wearing, this other guy next to him was just wearing like a trench coat. The military man carefully placed a medal on Danny's casket as they were about to lower it, and he saluted the casket. And when everyone went back to Danny's house, there was a lot of people there, and everyone was asking around, and nobody knew who that guy was. Nobody knew who he was. Just some highly decorated military official shows up to Danny Casolaro's funeral, puts a medal on his casket, salutes it. I mean, that's some powerful stuff right there.
Yeah.
Like
that is a very haunting image, and it's something that it does add credibility to the fact that he was murdered and part of a cover-up, or maybe the people that he was involved with. There's a possibility that he was also working for the United States government and trying to uncover, the octopus and trying to help out the government. And then, he got involved with this shady octopus thing, and then there was an undercover agent, double agent possibly, that is the reason why he's no longer with us. Murdered by a double agent.
Yeah.
Why would there be a medal put on his casket? Why would a military official? That's what makes me think maybe it wasn't the government that killed him. Maybe it was the octopus.
Right, and
I mean, that would make sense. I mean, the octopus doesn't want he was that close to finishing the investigation, revealing all of this shady stuff. A lot of high government officials are probably going to lose their jobs or get thrown in jail or whatever, and they're going to lose their funding. The octopus is probably making millions of dollars, off these shady deals. So,
do you remember the Don Devereaux case? Have you seen that one yet?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Didn't that? I feel like that one tied into this one in some way.
Yeah, it does a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's one we got to follow up with at some point, because that's another really interesting one that kind of ties into this one, where someone was murdered. It was a mistaken hit on that one, though. But, so, unfucking surprisingly, authorities refused to participate in the Unsolved Mystery segment for any kind of comment or anything.
Yeah.
Which just totally adds to credibility when no comment, we don't want to speak on that. The final middle finger to Danny's family and the whole, I guess, American people in general is Danny's wallet, suicide note, and other items have been retained with no explanation by the investigators.
Mm-hmm.
So they still have the shit and they wouldn't give it back.
Yeah.
No explanation.
Yeah, exactly.
That never happens. Unless it's a piece of evidence,
unless it's like the one where the whistleblower one, where it's just too radioactive. We can't let you bury his remains.
Right, but that's a totally different thing,
No, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Like that. That's okay. That's understandable why you can't give those items back to the family.
Yeah, and they weren't even
there's no reason for this.
They weren't even acting like this was evidence, because remember they weren't investigating this as a murder. This was investigated as a suicide. So why wouldn't they give his personal effects back to his family? They wouldn't hold that, not if it was a suicide. So that's the
thing. There's probably a government cover-up involved here, but whether it's the government itself, that's the sort of thing. It's like, was it the shadowy underground shadow conspiracy group, the octopus that killed him? And then there's members of the government who are part of the octopus. That's probably That's a pretty realistic scenario. Or was it the government who, but that's the thing. I mean, why the metal is what really makes me scratch my head. That makes me think that he was doing something for the United States government, but there was also individuals within the United States government who were a part of this octopus group. And, they finally caught up with him, and he really should not have been investigating that by himself, but maybe the government, they sanctioned that. Maybe they were like, well, this is important. We need somebody to investigate this, uncover this. He seems to be willing to do it, willing to risk his life to do it. So, but that's the thing.
Government wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't have had one individual go into something like this. This was something Danny was doing on his own.
Well, yeah, that could be it too. But sometimes they do have that kind of stuff because it's somebody who's expendable.
Well, as we've seen with the Withville, Kentucky UFOs, when you get too close to the government, they will bite back in a big way.
Exactly.
And Danny lost his life for it, but I mean, the other guy in the Withville, Kentucky one, I mean, he almost died. So,
but I mean, that's just the thing. I mean, that's what makes me wonder, is there two sides to this story? Was he working for the government, and then because he was uncovering this stuff, then the people who were part of the government, who were part of this group, are, part of the reasons why he was murdered. And then the government itself is trying to cover this up because it just looks bad all the way around, because don't want this stuff to get out, that we have government officials who are dealing in shady underground shit. But then we also don't want to get the stuff out that, this person was murdered, who, we had him go in and investigate this stuff. Yeah.
So. I think it was a hit. I think, they're talking about how the octopus involved, organized crime. Organized crime will not think twice to wipe someone out and Danny was fucking with their money, he was fucking with their money. I think it was a professional hit, pretty cut and dry.
I definitely think it's professional.
Yeah, it was an organized crime hit. They took him out. He was being too loud of a voice, and they silenced him. I mean, I think it was organized crime. I think the government didn't. The people, the government officials who were involved in the octopus, I don't think they necessarily batted an eye about it. I think they were like, tie up that loose end. He's fucking with our money.
So it seems like. Yeah, that's exactly what I probably. That's a very likely scenario. That's probably what happened. And like the guy said, Danny shouldn't have been doing this by himself. But
and that's one of the things about being an investigative journalist. This kind of stuff can happen. That's some of the risk you take on with your job. That's why I respect true investigative journalists so much.
The government probably, they probably had that military guy, put a medal because. Technically, you could say he died trying to do something for his country.
Right.
So, but then the ironic thing and the sad thing is that, well, it's really plausible that the government or someone who's involved with the government are the people who killed him.
I mean, why do you think it was such a big embarrassment that Edward Snowden was able to get out of the country and escape to Russia? And why do you think he's in hiding? And I mean, it's... people who expose government corruption, they have a mark on their head.
Yep, they have a target on their back.
So that's kind of all I have to say about this. I really feel like it was pretty cut and dry. It was a very fascinating case. If you have any way of watching it, I know that's shitty that I say that because a lot of people don't, but I mean, I highly. This is one of Unsolved Mysteries' top flight segments. So
this one is actually all in the box set.
This one is on the box set.
It's Bizarre Murders. It's included in the Bizarre Murders set. So there's other not so legal ways to get the set.
But you'll have to go through the octopus to find those.
Exactly.
Wouldn't recommend it.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Me and Mike got us passed because he said, "Hey, let me by, fuckers," and they said, "Oh, okay, sir. We don't want any trouble." So that's how we got access to it. Because Mike's got a stern side to him. A lot of people don't know that, but He can be very
People who
unwieldy.
watch my channel, I'm pretty sure they know I have that side to
Oh
me.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, go and watch his channel. You'll see his angry side. It's scary. It's frightening. No, it's actually entertaining. I enjoy watching it. But all right. So now moving on to our final segment of the podcast. This is a segment that I have wanted to cover since day one. I want to get some kind of tattoo about this on my body somewhere. That's how into this case I am. This is the Allagash Abductions, which can be found in the Ultimate Collection. I believe it's disc 1 of the UFOs. It's like the second segment of the first disc of the UFOs. I mean, that's how fucking good this shit was. I think the only one that came before this one was Roswell area. Yeah, I think it was like Roswell and then this one. Well, no, I might be wrong. Whatever.
No, the British, the
Bent
British
Waters.
one.
Yeah, it was Bent Waters. Then it was this one, right?
Yeah.
So this one's
Bentwaters,
just.
then it was Roswell, then it was it this one? No, it was this one after Bentwaters.
It was this one after Bent Waters. I know it was second in something.
Yeah.
This is just an amazing, incredible, phenomenal story. And just as a little teaser, we're going to play an actual clip from the show while on this segment when we talk about this. So just hang on, and you'll get to hear an actual official segment from the show on here. But this is just one that I've always loved. It's definitely not one that I remember from a kid, but it was nice because when I got the box set in the Ultimate Collection, I actually saw this one. I was like, holy shit, this is Unsolved Mysteries at some of its best times when it comes to UFOs. Probably my favorite UFO segment. Yeah, probably my favorite UFO segment that Unsolved Mysteries has ever done.
Yeah, I'd probably say it's mine too.
Yeah,
this case was also covered on Sightings.
Oh, was it?
This
Wow.
one, after watching it again, yeah, it brought back memories that, this segment gave me nightmares when I was a kid. I actually did see it when I was younger. This is one of the first things that introduced me to alien abductions, other than some books and stuff like that I was reading, like Mysteries Unexplained. Yeah, this is a pretty terrifying segment. It still is a pretty terrifying segment as an adult, especially when you see the sketches and you hear the actual audio from the hypnosis sessions.
And these guys, these four
and the
guys,
music, of course.
The music was fantastic on this segment. I'm so ashamed of myself that I don't know the name of the guy who creates
the
music.
The score just, it's spine tingling. It just chills you to the bone.
And people
very unnerving.
People forget how much the music really played into the show and the success of the show and the creepy factor. Because that's why everyone likes the show, is because it's.
You could
creepy.
just have nightmares. Just listen to the music.
Yeah. They have a few musical ideas that they introduce in a lot of the shows, especially the UFO kind of stuff. They'll have the what I like to call the Silent Night, Deadly Night thing, where it's like Silent Night but evil sounding. They have
the ones that get me in this is just the really unearthly ones, the really low tone,
like the low synthesizer drone.
Yeah, and then that's what really gets me.
What gets me is the ghost choir.
The ghost choir too. That Sightings does that too, and that would creep the fuck out of me. Is the
Just go and watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, where they go to find the monolith the second time in the moon or whatever, and you'll know what I'm talking about with the ghostly sounding choir. It's just a very atonal, distant choir sound, and they use it a lot when it comes to. Anyway, it's awesome. So this story opens up. The segment of the show opens up with this blue mist. That's the first thing you see when this opens up, and then you hear a narration over this blue mist, and you hear a guy saying, "I was starting to have nightmares I couldn't explain. I found myself in a brightly lit room, no idea where I was or why I was there. To my left, I could see my brother Jim, Chuck Rack, and Charlie Fultz on some kind of bench. I was wondering why they weren't helping me because I felt like I was in danger. While I was trying to figure this out, I saw a figure emerging from this dark light in front of me, and they show a silhouette of a alien being, of a large gray. And he said, I'd wake up sweating and breathing heavily in a state of shock. And for years, Jack Wiener told no one okay, let's just get out of the way. His last name's Wiener. Haha, grow the fuck up.
And by the way, they were all naked.
Yeah.
In this
all
nightmare.
naked, yeah.
So it's already freaky enough as it is, with this, alien dream, but you're also naked. So when you're naked, it's very uncomfortable anyway. So
Vulnerable.
now the uncomfortable level is like turned up to 11 now, because now here's a freaking alien, and now you're like, oh my God, why am I having this horrible nightmare?
Right. So finally, Jim, his brother, admitted to having these same nightmares. Elements of the dream were always the same. It was some kind of creatures, feelings of being violated was one of the feelings that was being discussed. Yeah. It was a real surprise to find out that Jim was having the same kind of dreams, because I didn't want to talk about my dreams. Something was going on here, but I just couldn't put my fingers on it. In the dreams,
and also they were identical twins, I think.
Yeah,
right?
They might not. They're twins. Yeah, they're pretty much identical. Yeah.
And the very intriguing thing about this is that one of them was not on this trip, right? Did not go on this camping trip, right?
No, both the twins went.
Oh, okay, both of them went. Sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
No, that'd be a good thought, though, but no, they were both there. In the dream, the twins were with Chuck Rack and Charlie Faltz, and that was always a theme. Everyone was there, that they went on a camping trip with, this random camping trip along.
It's like Fire in the Sky. It's like the case that the film Fire in the Sky is based on.
I actually have seen that movie, so you finally brought up a movie that I have actually seen that has a really good UFO abduction.
It's a great movie.
Yeah,
it really is. It's probably the best alien abduction movie.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that they have the best abduction sequence that I've seen thus far.
Good performances too. D.B. Sweeney, very underrated role in this. Robert Patrick, another underrated performance. A T-1000 himself. Probably his best acting role.
Love how you can just rattle off these people's names, like you have all this knowledge in your head about all these like actors and stuff.
I do. That's why people call me the walking IMDb.
It's true. You kind of are. So all of these dreams related to some, from what they could figure out, I mean, all these guys were friends, obviously, but they weren't like, seeing each other all the time and everything. So it was kind of like one of those, like, why am I having dreams about these, specific guys? And the only thing they could think about was these dreams must have related to some kind of camping trip that they had taken a while back, like 10 years ago or so, in the Allagash Wilderness, which is in Maine. So on the second night that they were out on this camping trip, Jim noticed a bright object in the sky. He said it was just floating in the treetops, didn't seem to be moving in any direction. He looked at it for about 15 seconds with the binoculars, and suddenly it just winked out from the outside in. And he thought maybe it was a weather balloon or a helicopter that turned its light out. But there was something about this object that left him with an odd feeling. And they didn't dwell on it, they just continued with their camping trip. The men continued through the outer Allagash Wilderness, and on the fourth day, they figured they'd try some night fishing. Now, Charlie Faltz is talking about up in the Allagash Wilderness at this time of year, when it's night out, it is black. I mean, it is blacker than black out there. So they built a campfire, and he said it was a good-sized campfire. Not enough to where it would burn the forest, but it was borderline. This fire would have lasted 4 hours, bare minimum. So Chuck Rack, Charlie Faltz, Jim and Jack Weiner, they get into this canoe, and they start paddling out to the middle of the lake. As they're paddling, Chuck Rack's in the very back. He felt like they were being watched, so he turned and looks over his shoulder and saw this large globe of light in the distance behind them. It was the same object they had seen a few nights earlier. Chuck said, "Hey guys, look at that." And nobody had to ask what or where. Everyone just seemed to know exactly where to turn and look. They were saying it had this roiling effect to it, like a mini sun. It lit up the treetops like daylight. After looking at it for several moments, they decided to signal the thing. Charlie Faltz picked up a flashlight and squeezed off a few SOS signals with his flashlight. The response was instant. Chuck had a feeling of pure elation because they were finally going to find out what this thing was. Then the object started rushing towards them. At that point, Charlie Faltz's interest was satisfied. He just wanted to get out of there at that point. So he dropped the flashlight and he just started paddling as fast as he could. All he wanted to do was get back onto the shore. but they couldn't escape this thing. It was hot on their tracks. Charlie never looked back, but Jim did. And he thought to himself, we're not going to outrun this thing. It's just coming too quickly. The next memory any of the men had was being back on the shore, staring up at this bright object as if they were posing for a portrait. I remember thinking, my God, I could bounce a stone off this thing. That's how close it was. Charlie Fultz tried to signal the object again, and at this point it seemed like it was uninterested with them, and it slowly drifted across the lake, and then it disappeared and reappeared much higher up in the sky. So, to me, there's so many like cool things to talk about with this specific part. I mean, the part where it's like Chuck Rack said, "Hey guys, look at that," and how they say in the show, everyone didn't have to say where, everyone just knew where to look. I mean, that's weird. That's like some kind of I don't know what you would call that, but that to me was like, oh, that's kind of bizarre. And how one guy had a feeling of pure elation that he signaled the thing, but the other guy was scared and just started paddling, and how this thing was just coming up behind them so fast, and then how Unsolved Mysteries says that the next memory of them had is them being back on shore, posing as if they were standing for a portrait, and they were.
Yeah.
Like, they were just all standing there, except for Chuck Rack was the only one in the boat, but he was sitting. But yeah, they're all just posing there, as if this thing had just placed them there itself, and these men had not gotten off this thing.
It's like, yeah, it's definitely the missing time thing.
And definitely missing time going on here, and that's, God, I can't believe we haven't covered that segment yet. But think about this. You see this thing up in the sky that's so far away from you, and you can't seem to get its attention. Then you finally get its attention, and it's coming after you. And then the next thought you have is, this thing is right in front of your face. This thing is like right there. It's so close to you, and like Jim was saying, you could bounce a rock off of this thing. That's how close it was, and yet there wasn't that same sense of fear or awe or anything. It's like they had been like, in a trance.
Like they've been put in a trance.
Yeah, and like this thing was, now it was like right in front of them, yet there was no fear, there was no anything. They were just purely relaxed and just like whatever. And
I mean, you and I would be terrified.
Oh yeah. And then so Chuck Rack says, I remember stepping out of the canoe and being very relaxed. There was no panic. Everyone just wanted to go to bed. All the men agree that they were out on the lake for less than 20 minutes. But yet when they came back, only coals remained with their huge bonfire. So, bam, missing time right there. The unusual thing is that they didn't stay up for hours discussing this thing like you'd think four young guys would do. I mean, and yeah, that's exactly what I thought. It's like, dude, that just happened to me. I'm not sleeping that night. I'm talking about it all night. And they were just very fatigued, and they just wanted to go to bed. And so that's what they did. Yeah. And then they spent another 10 days in the fucking wilderness. Yeah. That's some white people shit right there. I would not have
stayed 10 more days. Like, we're going home now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this thing going to come back? I mean, I don't want it to come back. Or get fire in the sky didn't stay. They left immediately.
Well, I mean, the fact that these guys were going out camping for such a long period of time shows that they're kind of like a man's men to begin with, because...
Yeah, I mean, but there's nothing pussy about, you saw a fucking UFO, and then this missing time, and then all this weird shit happened. There's nothing,
but see, the thing about it is like
not manly about, yeah, let's go. Let's cancel this, right? I'll come back later.
Well, the thing about it is though, is like, to them, since it was missing time, it was like all the chain of thought was, oh, look at this thing, it's chasing us, and then, hey, we're on the shore. Oh, we're tired. Let's go to bed. There was none of that other shit in between. There was just, like, it was that exactly. There was memory loss. So
that might have attributed to it. They had this memory loss, so they're just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, there's that.
Carried on like nothing had ever happened.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, there was some kind of alien mind manipulation for the fact that they were just standing there, and this thing was much closer, and it was almost like they were rape victims. Like this thing was done with them, so it just kind of drifted away, and they were just there. It's like they were drugged or roofied or something.
Well, think about it. I mean, if abduction cases, they are real. I mean, there are some that are just like, people are crazy, making up shit, whatever. But it would be like being raped. It really would.
Yeah. Absolutely. But no justice.
No, absolutely
And no
not.
explanation.
No. And then you tell it to somebody and they think you're crazy.
Right. God, that'd be awful.
At least with an actual rape, there could maybe be justice, and you can actually tell it to people and they believe you.
And they did. They tried to tell friends and family about the UFO that they saw, but no one really believed them. The men could barely believe it themselves. Finally,
Yeah.
Jim contacted Ray Fowler, who I believe is also, I want to say he was involved in the missing time.
He's a UFO researcher.
Yeah. Fowler suggested the men go under hypnosis with a trained hypnotist. From the beginning, Ray had suspected the men had been abducted by a UFO, but did not tell them that. Now, if you're a skeptic, I guess it's at this point that you could make the assertion that this is a psychologist who had expectations, and that's the number one rule that you try to avoid as a mental specialist.
But he wasn't the guy who did it, though. I think he recommended them to go to a different hypnotherapist.
Right.
So he wasn't the one that did the hypnotherapy.
But he was kind of the guy who helped form the opinions and the kind of guided them. And
Well, yeah, possible. But he said, but like you said, he said he did not. I don't know if he said they were abducted. He just said
he didn't tell him. He didn't tell him that
maybe you should go in and go with the hypnosis to recover the details of the sighting, not of the abduction.
Yeah. Look, I believe it happened, but I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
I can understand. I mean, I can understand devil's advocate as well. I mean, I'm kind of like, hypnosis or whatever. But with me, it's like, it's kind of silly to me to suggest that hypnotists would be like, you're getting sleepy, it's sleepier, aliens.
Yeah.
You want to talk about you're being abducted by aliens, sleepier and sleepier. I don't buy the idea of these hypnotists putting in subliminal messaging into these people's heads while they're under hypnosis. Also, like with hypnosis, it's like, well, if they weren't abducted by aliens, why would they have any memories of anything like this? You put them under and they'd be like, tell us about the what's going on. And all they do is they kind of do lead. I have to admit, some hypnotists, they do kind of lead with questions. But why would somebody in that state actually answer it like these men have? That's the thing. Why would they answer it like that?
And you're going to hear the clip, folks. Don't you worry. You're going to hear the clip, and you can judge for yourselves. The four men went under hypnosis, and they promised not to tell each other what the other had said during the sessions. The four men, Jim Weiner, Chuck Rack, Charlie Fultz, and Jack Weiner, described what has come to be known as a classic abduction experience. All four say that they were taken aboard a craft. The aliens forced them to strip naked and seemed to be performing medical examinations. And they show paintings.
These sketches.
These men really were all
freaky sketches.
Yeah, these men were all incredibly talented artists.
Yeah.
It's a shame that this is an audio-only thing because the paintings that they did were just phenomenal.
They added so much.
They did. They added so much to the commentary of along with the scary music. But
that's what scared me the most when I saw it when I was a kid was the sketches with the hypnosis tapes.
It conveyed the point so well of what they went through. And I'm going to give Unsolved Mysteries some of this credit too because pairing the music with the audio commentary of the hypnosis, well, not commentary, but the audio of the hypnosis session going over the top, and then the visual of the paintings all together conveyed the feelings and the fear of what they were going through just so well.
It did. It was like you were there and you were able to experience what they were experiencing. And in a more effective way than if they did a reenactment because they didn't have the budget. So if they did reenactment, it could come across as silly instead of actually being genuinely unnerving and scary. And, that's exactly what it was for these men. And so the segment just did a phenomenal job recreating that.
And so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, me and Mike are going to sit back and we're going to play for you the excerpts from the hypnosis sessions that happened to these four men and what they had to say. And again, I wish you could see the drawings that go along that they play in the show while this is going on, but I think with the music and the audio, it's creepy enough, so here it goes. Yeah, wouldn't it have been nice if I could have played you that audio clip? Well, folks, as of November 10th, 2016, when I'm recording this now, we had to fight the copyright stuff with Cosgrove and Moyer's lawyers. So, yeah, sorry, man. I can't play you the clip. It was in the original one, but it's not going to be in this one. And, man, it was creepy. The guys basically just talk about how their experience inside the UFO and the things that the aliens were doing to them, but they describe it in such graphic detail. As far as the devices the aliens are using on them, they're taking blood samples and other samples, they're scraping the skin, they can see the pain on the other person's face, but there's nothing they can do because they're under some kind of mind control. All that was in the clip. Again, it's a bummer that you can't hear it, but for this podcast to even exist right now, some sacrifices had to be made, and this was one of those sacrifices, so I apologize. You guys know I would play it if I could, but I cannot, so enjoy the rest of the episode, and here is me and Mike's reaction to that audio clip that was originally played. Ugh. Ugh. Oh, God. No. Oh, my God. If that doesn't make your blood curdle, I don't know what will.
Does it make your hands, the hair on your arms stand up straight? Yeah, I don't know what.
Oh, man. And like, I can't stress those pictures enough that they show. They illustrated, like, the device that sucks or whatever. It looked like this creature with this long needle-like snout, and, like, they put it right on the guy's chest, and it's, like, sucking out his fluids, and they show just the illustrations they did of these aliens, and, you know, they zoom in right to the alien's eyes where it says, "Don't be afraid. We won't harm you."
And I'm like, fuck that shit, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm very afraid. And they know that we're lower life forms, so they can just command us to, you know, that we don't have any ability to fight their mind control. So, after the hypnosis session, Ray brought the Allagash Four together, and they realized that they all recalled the same horrific series of events. One person would pause to take a breath, and then the next person would pick up right where the other person left off. They knew exactly what they were going to say. It was amazing to come to the realization that all of this was true. And it was also nice to know that I wasn't going insane, quoted Jim Weiner. Ultimately, each of the Allagash Four took polygraphs and passed easily.
And here we have the skeptics.
And, of course, we have to have skeptics for any good Unsolved Mysteries UFO segment, because they try to be fair and balanced and give...
Clinical psychologist Dr. William Cohn, he suggested the images from popular culture or horror movies may have triggered inspiration for memories of alien abduction. I always call bullshit on this particular theory, because there was nothing that looked remotely like the Greys, or any of the kind of instruments or stuff that they used. There was nothing like that. I'm sorry. Invaders from Mars from 1950, whatever. That looks nothing like the Greys.
Those look like some of the lamest aliens I've ever seen that they showed. Those looked like Swamp Thing more than they looked like a Grey.
They're trying to make me think that that's what it's triggered inspiration and for memories of alien abduction. I call that bullshit. First off, I don't think anyone wants to have memories of alien abduction. I don't want to have memories of alien abduction. Sometimes I don't think you want to have memories of alien abduction.
Sometimes I don't want to have memories of this show at night when I get scared, let alone a real occurrence.
Well, think about this segment especially.
Yeah, and the thing is like, you don't truly start to see movies with depictions of Greys in them until after like Roswell happened.
Really, not until like 1989 with the movie Communion.
Right. So my point is before the Roswell incident happened, you didn't see any kind of anything that came near what a Grey looked like because there was no reference point.
Well, even afterwards, you didn't really see Greys in terms of what the aliens look like in a lot of these movies, 50s sci-fi movies. You got the This Island Earth aliens that are got big giant heads looking like something from Mars Attacks. So that I always like, whenever I hear that theory, I'm just like, oh, bullshit, my dick.
Yeah.
This is what he says. This movement is media driven. It's cyclical. People hear about good cases on TV. They think they have had the same thing happen. It sort of feeds upon itself. First off, this happened in 1976. I don't think there was a show that was talking about alien abductions at the time. Right. I don't know if In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy had one that mentioned alien abduction. I don't know. I don't know if there were books around the time. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, there's not that much money involved with alien abduction stories. It's not like it's $1 million enterprise where you're going to get like millions of dollars if you come out and say, I was abducted by aliens.
Well, I mean, it's like, with something like Guardian with the Canadian UFO, it's kind of like it's kind of more iffy because you have someone who's appearing on multiple TV shows, telling their story and this, that, and the other. In the tape, their quote unquote evidence is sketchy at best. But in this case, where you have like people who have no interest in any of that, they were just going on a camping trip, and then this thing happens, and they all recall the same thing, and they are in every other way upstanding citizens. It's like, yeah, there's something more to this one.
And then here's more of the skeptics. So like, usually these are people who have no interest in abductions and have not read about it, are familiar with the beings, and are shocked but astounded when this isn't really a skeptic here. They're shocked and they're astounded when they hear someone else had these experiences as well, or that there's material in the media about it. The investigators have a very clear-cut agenda about what they're looking for, and this is still skeptics. So if you get somebody that's doing UFO abduction research, this is a person that has already decided that UFO abductions are real, and that thousands of people are having them. They have a symptom list, and if you come in the door with those symptoms, then you must have been abducted. It's the same psychiatrist guy. It doesn't really work like that. The person comes in because they've heard that I'm open to being listening to something other than therapists or other mental health professionals have not been able to listen to. This is the actual psychiatrist who did the hypnosis, Dr. Mack. This is not a club that anyone wants to belong to. And I always love that line. It's not a club that anyone wants to belong to, and I definitely feel that way.
Yeah, and they say that about the missing time segment too. It's like that. They have this groups of people who have experienced this missing time phenomenon. Which, in short, it's when something that only should have taken a short amount of time. You look at the clock and 3 hours have passed, and it's like, where did all this time go? Yeah, exactly.
Where did all the time go? And then I know people say when they think of alien abductions, they think of the cliche, anal probe, they would probe you up the ass or how, it's all like just laughable. But probably to these people, like, one of the Charlie Foltz himself, who said this happened. If you believe it, that's all right. If you don't believe it, I don't care.
Right.
Because it's
And he was talking about how, Charlie was saying how, if you told someone 40 years ago that you could watch a meteorite crash into a planet from some satellite image beaming to the Earth, that and we're going to call it a television, that's a reality check. But back then, it'd be science fiction, So basically, he's talking about how, though it might sound crazy and unbelievable now, in the future, it could very well become a very credible...
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing I don't get is that a lot of people are more willing to believe that UFOs are real, that some of these UFO sightings are legitimate, but when it comes to alien abduction, it's like, no, that's just total sci-fi.
That's a bridge too far.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, well, if these alien beings are visiting Earth, I mean, it would kind of make sense that they would want to investigate not only just the settings and the environment, but it's the people who live on it, which is the intelligent beings like themselves.
Right, and if it made its way into Unsolved Mysteries, there's a few things you can be sure of. You know, they've already done some vetting with these people. They weren't drunk, they weren't high, they weren't mistaking this for any other kind of explainable phenomena. It's like, no, this they've kind of ruled out anything else that this could be. Then you tie in the dreams and the hypnosis and the common stories from all four guys, and
that's the thing too. The common stories, they're identical. This would have had to been some really, really well thought out, really well planned scheme.
Right, and again, I got to bring up the nightmares. These are unpleasant things that are happening to them as a result of something in the past. They do not want to have these nightmares. These nightmares are unpleasant to them. It interrupts their sleep. They're suffering from this. It's not like they're like, oh yeah, it happened, and fucking whoop-de-doo, my life is awesome, and we're like selling a bunch of books about it and shit. It's like, no, this is disturbing, and I'm having nightmares. I thought I was going crazy. I mean, have you ever woken up from a nightmare and felt like, wow, that was a nice experience? I mean, no, they're fucking terrible. They're awful having nightmares.
That's why they call them nightmares.
Especially if it's something that you feel like is based in fact and something that actually happened. Good God, it's horrible. So,
I read something. There was this like a guy who was trying to say something online, who was a skeptic about it. He mentioned something about the park ranger said it's like that what they saw was searchlights, and I'm like, I don't know if I buy that source, because I'm pretty sure Unsolved Mysteries would have probably tried to contact somebody, for that kind of information if that was the case. But even if it was, they'd explain it away. That's what always happens with UFO sightings. Oh, it was like that one where the military's like, no, you didn't see UFOs. It was like flares that would drop out of the sky or whatever, lantern, whatever things, right?
Yeah.
Remember that segment? Yeah. It wasn't a UFO. And then there's actually people who know what those are. It's like, no, there's like a guy who actually is a pilot who's like, I've seen those things.
You're talking about the Phoenix UFO. Yeah.
He's like, that's not what that is.
Right. Yeah, the flares. Yeah, they showed. Yeah, lame excuse for now. See, as a kid, I loved those lame excuses because I was like, okay, aliens really don't exist. It was just flares. I didn't want to take comfort in that because that shit scared me as a kid. But now I'm like,
it's just searchlights.
Yeah. Now I'm all David Duchovny on this shit. I'm like, I want to believe. Like
truth is out there.
Right. So, Stack caps the episode off with by saying, talking about. Greek philosopher Aristotle described the world as round, and skeptics dismissed it as fantasy. When Copernicus said the sun, not the earth, was the center of the universe, many considered it heresy. When Jules Verne wrote that someday a human being will travel to the moon, scientists wrote it off as pure science fiction. Perhaps the day will come when the beliefs about UFOs and alien encounters will have the same transformation. And then they show some scientist guy, and he's like, we all share the same dream, that we are not alone in the universe. Scientists and these people who, whether they're out front and in public about doing UFO research, or if they're doing it secretly, sending probes all over the space and trying to find signs of life out there. We all share that same dream, that we're not alone. And then Stack ends the episode by saying, it is either the greatest hoax in human history, an unprecedented mass hallucination, or perhaps the single most important event since the dawn of civilization. For the hardened skeptic, proof will remain elusive until an alien spacecraft is placed on public display or an extraterrestrial can be seen on the nightly news. Until then, one of the greatest mysteries of our age will remain unsolved.
Ooh, that's perfect.
Oh, it's fucking great. I love that segment. I'm so glad we got to talk about that. I hope you guys enjoyed that one.
It is a very, very great segment. Really good segment.
Ugh. So I think that sums up our episode for tonight. I think we're clocking in at 2 hours, although I said that last week, but after some editing, it wasn't 2 hours, so I'm not going to say that anymore, even though I just said it. Whatever, fuck you. Yeah, again, you can like our page, facebook.com/uncovering unsolved mysteries. There's links to our YouTube channels all over the place. Mike's is easy to find because he has his own URL. Fancy Pants is youtube.com/OCP communications.
We
For
already
me,
said that in the opening, but
yeah, I know. I'm plugging like a motherfucker. What can I say? I want to thank the people in Australia who are listening to this for being such a smallish country. We sure do get a lot of people from Australia who seem to be into the show, so that's cool. Oh, you know what would be a great, and anybody who's listening in Australia, and I know there's a few of you who really pay more close attention to this podcast. There is a UFO segment involving this pilot. It was actually the most, I think it was the most documented unsolved case in Australian aviation history. This guy took his plane out and he was reporting, and we actually should cover this one. I forget his name. He was talking over the CB, or whatever you call it, to air traffic control, and he was talking about how there's an object around him, and, you know, if there's any reported traffic in the sky, and the guy was saying, no, there shouldn't be anything out there, and he's like, well, there's this thing, and it's surrounding me, and it's, you know, descending and ascending at an alarming rate, and it's not an aircraft. And that was his last words, was it's not an aircraft, and neither his plane nor his body has ever been found. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a spooky one. That's one that we should talk about.
Is that even on the box set? Or
yeah,
it
was called Australian UFO.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so that's on there. So yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. Mike, do you have any say something?
Not really. I don't have much else to say except thanks for listening, and yeah, try not to have nightmares tonight.
Yeah, sorry we scared you so good. Well, if we did our job, hopefully we did. I don't know. I just find this shit interesting to talk about, and obviously some other people.
I don't know who cannot be unsettled by that Allagash abduction audio.
I know, right?